the data protection and privacy regulations, which provides for two areas for which information should be provided. One, the complaints you've received and their status, but also the breaches that you experience and any action undertaken. But we went ahead and included other aspects as required, since Regulation 4B empowers us to set standards and monitor how you comply with them. So we included other areas, your registration status, and other audits that you may have conducted, as you'll see as we go along. So very many of you were asking and monitor how you comply with them. So we included other areas, your registration status, and Anita, you need to mute.
Becca, can you hear me? We can get some.
So very many of you were asking Anita, monitor. First mute, just a minute. Fair about that. So we're talking about the particulars which should be provided in the report. One, we're talking about the financial. The law requires the report to have been submitted within 3 months at the end of the financial year. Now, this financial year is that of government, which ends on 30th June of every calendar year. So it's expected that between July to 28th of September, that is when you should have submitted your annual compliance report. That is the only financial year for emphasis purposes that you should be considering. Now we'll start with the first area. I'll start with the first area of the registration status. As you are aware, the law requires that you are supposed to renew every year. So you should give us an update of what your status is. So as a way of an example, we stated that this particular company, XYZ Uganda Limited, was registered on 25th of November of 2021 within those various categories and given that registration number. So it's just renewal, then you give us the period. Remember, the law says that you are supposed to renew 3 months to the expiry of your certificate. So please include that. There is no one standard period within which everyone should renew because different companies registered within different periods. So do that calculation and provide such details. And if your certificate has expired, that should be indicated as well. The other within registration is you provide details if there have been any changes. So let's say there've been changes within maybe the location of the company or the organization or the DPO. We've been receiving so many notifications about changes of DPO, the data protection officer, that should be indicated. And any other categories, whether you're collecting more information or you're transferring to countries beyond those that you had indicated in your earlier registration application, please give us those particular details. Now, about the changes, the law requires that when you make any changes, now this is beyond the report, you should formally write to us. So in case the DPO changes, formally write to the National Personal Data Protection Director. You give us the new details of the person, the name, their other title in case they have other duties, in addition to being a DPO, and the email address and their location. So the other aspect of the report is the leadership and oversight. As you know, we use the accountability framework, which starts with leadership, that you should have at least a person in charge of compliance. Now, we still use these particular examples to guide you on how you should go about it, but you can have a DPO, but then they are working with a team. So that team, those are their details that you should indicate, and only the titles. So let's say we have someone designated as the data protection officer, but they have probably someone from assurance or internal audit being part of the team, maybe someone from information security to work on the controls, human resource if they're in charge of training to ensure that it's actually planned and done and recorded. So give the details of the people with whom the DPO works, what we call the data protection committee. Now, we encourage you even beyond the report that you should at least think of that, because it's one of the ways through which it can help in embedding data protection practices within the organization. So think about that. If you already have one, provide the details. In case you don't, that you can always find ways of implementing in the preceding year, rather the subsequent year. So the other is policy. So governance, after having indicated the details of the person who is in charge of compliance, now that person should ensure that they provide the details of the policies that you have. The policies that we're interested in that support data protection practices within the organization, they include one, the data protection and privacy policy. You indicate the date when it was approved and when it's due for review. The other is information security, still the same, and records management. These will later look into the tool to see what it should cover. In case you don't have any, you can indicate possibly if this is in draft or when you intend to do it. Or in case you have none, you can indicate that none is available at the moment. Then training is another. Now training is twofold. Training of the data protection officer, what they've undertaken and the dates on which they took them, and also the subject matter. That is very key. Yes, we understand you've been attending these trainings offered by the office. You can indicate those, but in case there are any other, please add them. Some of the trainings may not exclusively be tagged data protection training, but they could have aspects where data protection was being offered or talked about. That should also be indicated, but that indication should be very clear. If let's say it was for the accountants, part of their annual meeting, but then they had a section on data protection, please be that detailed. Now, the other bit of training we're talking about here is in respect to now the staff. This one should be well quantified, whereby you tell us the departments or directorates, the units within your organization. So here we only gave for guidance purposes because different organizations have different departments. So let's say for XYZ company, they have the business services, administration, senior management. Indicate the total numbers because you are able to establish this from your human resource officers or managers. The total number of staff, how many of those that have undertaken the training, and then add the percentage as well. This will help you know that if you, let's say this company set a particular target of 85%, or let's say 90%, please make sure that the information that you provide speaks to that percentage that was set earlier. And then this will also be guiding you going forward. Now, the other area is the complaints. We are only interested in complaints that relate to handling of personal data or mishandling for that matter. So this could, to help you properly understand, very many of you have been asking what sort of complaints should we consider. Now, the principles of data protection should be your guiding point in case you do not have a policy. One, the principle of accountability. If people are complaining that, well, we believe such a company should have at least a data protection officer. That could be one of the categorization of your complaints. Then the other could be around lawfulness, that information should be collected lawfully and fairly. So if anyone is complaining that I didn't give you my consent and they believe you should have obtained it before you collected or used the information, that could be another category. Then the other possibly could be, yes, I provided my information as required by law, but I believe you collected way more information than what the law requires of you. As an example, know your customer. Those are the lawful grounds. Possibly the other could be you're providing me with a contractual basis, but still the information that you collected was irrelevant to that. So that's one of the ways through which you can categorize those complaints. Then the other could be, the information still around minimality is excessive. Then you do not have processes in place that support the principle of quality. Quality is about enabling the data subjects being able to update the information, reach out to you to let you know that the information you have is incomplete or misleading. So those are some of the other complaints. Then the other could be they believe you're keeping the information much longer than required by law, or for that particular ground that you relied on, provide a service, and it's not well stated in your notices, you're not transparent about in respect to it. So to be able for you to properly categorize and know which complaints you'll be handling or that you've handled within the reporting period, look at those 7 principles of data protection, because it's really the foundation of the law. So you let us know, one, the complaints that you've resolved, those that are pending, and generally the total complaints received. And also, most importantly, the most frequent complaints received. So was it about people wanting to access the information, updating it, they believe you're sharing it with a third party, or you're not transparent? That should be indicated as well. So the other is the data security breaches. Now for these, it's about any sort of something that happens in regard to the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of the information that you have. Now, the Ugandan law requires that you record those breaches and you immediately notify us, the regulator, after the occurrence of the breach. So you give the numbers, one, those that you've reported, those that have been resolved, and the total breaches. So this is also something that speaks into your data protection policy, and then also the training that you've been conducting. So one of the ways through which you can be gathering this information is by talking to the different departments that are actively using this information. If there's been any, what they've done about it. But going forward, the data protection officer should have better visibility so that they can be able to enable the organization undertake or implement the obligations as required by law. And still, you let us know the most frequent cause of the breach and what could have been the impact. Was there a loss of records? Did it affect so many numbers of individuals? That should be indicated. So in case there hasn't been any, but please be aware that in case you give any incorrect information, there is it carries liability. But if you're sure there hasn't been any breach, indicate there hasn't been one within the reporting period. Then the other is the data protection impact assessment. The law requires these impact assessments to be conducted in specific scenarios. One, let's say you are introducing a new way, an automated way of collecting information. Let's say you launching a new platform application that will enable possibly your data subjects, customers, employees to reach out to you, maybe get a service, or you're deploying CCTV cameras within the premises, or maybe you'll be processing information of the data subjects, the individuals, on a large scale. Now, this impact assessment should speak to one, where there are risks that may actually result from such a deployment or the planned processing or collection of personal data. So if at that time an impact assessment was conducted that revealed the particular risk and what recommendations you came up with, please include that particular area and when it was done. In case you don't have any, then you can indicate that you didn't carry out that. But going forward, we always encourage you to have these. And then there is also, you can substitute with what we call the privacy risk assessment, whereby you can do data analysis looking at where information is collected, what risks may come up, still hinged on the 7 principles. So if anyone, let's say you look at your hiring process. So yes, resumes are received probably at the reception or through an online portal, but what happens to the unsuccessful candidates? How is the information disposed of? So then those are the risks of one, the security of that information within the application forms that they're asking for too much information. So it's said that you as the data protection officer, you can actually find ways, controls to ensure that the privacy of the individuals will be upheld and reduce on their privacy and protection of data being abused. So the last area is about the audits. Now the audits, for them, they speak to generally looking at the level of compliance within the organization. Now this is where, going back to the conversation of having a privacy data protection committee within the organization. So if you have an internal auditor and you've been working with them in respect to if they're carrying out annual audits of the organization or at whatever period of time, if any was conducted, then that should be indicated as internal. Definitely when you conduct an audit, it has gaps, and then there is a period within which those gaps should have been addressed. So the level of percentage of implementation of the recommendation following that audit that was conducted should be indicated as well. If there's been an external one, we've been to a number of entities where we've conducted audits, that should be indicated as well. Or not even as the regulator, it could be an independent party that you brought on board to assess your level of compliance. So basically, that's what the report is about. But in conclusion, you just give us major takeaways, any general observations and challenges. Now, these challenges, you're not reporting yourself or the organization. It's finding ways through which we can be able to assist you. A number of organizations have been reaching out to us when they're developing their data governance frameworks, some of them deploying new products, and then thinking, okay, these new products that we're going to be deploying, they are data intensive. How can we be able to comply with the law? Is it due to maybe further processing? Is it due to extensive sharing, onboarding of so many third parties? Now, it is from this conclusion that we can be able to review and then possibly reach out to you and find ways through which we can help, or even coming up with a guidance note that can help and be of assistance to the wider industry. So please provide such information so that your organization can benefit from us as the regulator guiding you, but also your peers. Then who should sign? We advise the starting point should always be the accounting officer. That is for government, maybe the permanent secretary or executive director. And then the others, the CEO, should be someone that can actually commit the organization. The DPO can still sign if you've really been appointed, that can pass, but the first option should really be the head of the organization. So that's about it with the report. But I'd also pointed out from the documentation that we shared that this report and the compliance tools, it's what you can use to ensure that you embed and see if you're doing right, or if you're preparing the report, to find what more detail would require of you. So I'm going to share to project that compliance tool. This is the compliance tool. It really mirrors what is in the annual compliance report and what is expected of you as a data controller and processor. Now, the things that we've been talking about, whether an audit has been conducted, an internal audit, an external one, this is the tool that you can actually use to do the internal audits. And then this is the same tool that we also use when we come into audit you. So if you become very familiar with it, then you will definitely be sure of what is expected of you. And in case we come in to assess you, at least you would know what we'll be looking out for. This is one of the ways through which we believe if we are a regulator that people know exactly what we expect, then they can be able to easily implement it even if we're not there or you don't reach out to us. So we talked about, remember within the report, we talked about leadership and oversight. So here we talk about appointment or designation of a data protection officer. The difference between appointment and designation is if you have the resources, you can hire a data protection officer and you appoint them to do exclusively such work. But if you don't, then you can designate, which means there is already an existing person doing similar roles of compliance, audit, assurance, then they're just given additional roles of a data protection officer. So here within the tool, how such a person should be designated or appointed, they should be given a formal appointment, proper job description, then their contacts, that is the general email and official number, not their personal numbers included in the privacy notice, policy, and other documents. Then they should definitely be trained. That's why you're asking that please make sure that you plan for your training. Yes, we are giving you monthly trainings, but also as an organization, you know your unique needs in regard to the compliance work that you do, the data collection that goes on. So if you get training specific to that, then this is how you should go about it. And then the people that you work with, go back to the committee, people in information security, records management, and any other within your organization and how to go about it. Then the policies, still a number of you have been asking us. Now this goes beyond the report. Now this is operationalization of the law. I've been asking us for templates of a data protection policy. This tool gives you what sections of the policy should be covered. One, the definitions, the scope. Remember, the policy just tells your employees and then contractors and third parties what their responsibilities are. So that's generally the scope. And it should have links to the other policies, information security, records management, and any other related to data protection. Then what your statement is as the organization, the responsibilities of each party in regard to the principles and the rights, the requirement to report breaches. That's why, you know, some of you have been submitting reports and saying there hasn't been any breach. You know, a breach could be as simple as someone lost their laptop and it had personal data. And so any of related breaches, so here within the policy should have express provisions on who to report to, when they should report, creating awareness, and then the compliance bit of it. People should be made aware that if you do not comply with this policy, one, you can be given a verbal warning, secondly, a written warning, or even be dismissed in particular circumstances. Of course, this should mirror the human resource manual. And then the contracts and the review process. Then the other is the training and awareness. Now for the training, should be done at induction, you know, when people have been onboarded, so that they know as an organization, we collect this much. So make sure that you comply with the policy and the law, and this is what is expected of you. And people sign that, and there's a record of that. Then also the refresher trainings, this could be within the staff meetings, how you go about it for the specialized roles, how you monitor. That's why you see in us, when we conduct these trainings, we always send you an evaluation link. That way, if you conduct trainings and you do not evaluate and monitor, you can never know how effective it is. Then where you keep the material, the same way we do it, when we conduct these trainings, the links are put on our YouTube channel so that you can always come back and watch it. So that should also be done the same within your organization. And of course, the records are put in a centrally located place. Have a proper process about how to enable individuals exercise their rights. Now, this is one of the things that can actually help you come up with a proper complaints and handling mechanism. So if you have a policy that talks about how people can correct their information, update it or erase it, accessing it, how you go about it, but then also in case there are complaints, you should properly record them. Some of you already have a complaints handling mechanism within your organizations. Just make sure that it mirrors what the law requires and the timelines. Transparency, the privacy notice. Still, we've been getting questions about how should I develop a privacy notice? We've standardized the language that a notice and policy are different. Policy is internally facing for the employees, contractors. Notice is externally facing. So the people from whom you're collecting the information, you're being transparent about your handling practices. So what that notice should have and when it should be provided, and creating awareness about it internally, but then also when it should be reviewed, you look at this particular tab. Then the other is about data sharing. Within your registration, most of you have been telling us, okay, we have law firms, auditors, insurance companies, cab hailing services with whom we share staff lists. Make sure you have contracts with them, and this gives you the provisions that you should consider. The other is records management. This goes beyond personal data. So if you're to develop a records and management policy, records and retention policy, look at this. Why this is very important, and it's one of the policies that we've identified, because it will enable you have a standardized mechanism through which people can exercise their rights. So if I walk up to you and I tell you, give me all the information that you have about me. So if you didn't create a proper record, and it doesn't have mechanisms of possibly enabling updating and who could be having it, it will be hard for you to be able to enable me exercise that right, because you'll be scampering around the place wondering where that information could be contained. So this policy will enable you do exactly that within the expected period of time. So that's about it. The other one is the information security policy, which covers other information assets beyond personal data. It also talks about governance, having a person in charge of information security, looking at the information assets where they're located, similar to the records and management policy. Then looking at aspects of information security, physical security, what controls do you have? Then you have a clean desk policy, and then online platforms, can they be accessed by anyone? Do people share passwords? So it guides you on how to come up with one, and then how to also monitor that level of compliance. So I believe going forward, when you rely on these tools, preparing the annual data protection and privacy compliance report will be a lot easier, because these are things that you have been tracking, and then everyone will be involved. It will just be a matter of consolidating the information. But for now, in case what we've discussed, you haven't been doing it, you can indicate so, and then that way we'll see how to help you. But the expectation is that in next year, clearly you should have improved, because from these very reports, at least we'll be looking at, has this particular organization improved? Are they still at the same level? Haven't they developed any policies? Why is that so? You keep indicating that you're not receiving any complaints, no breaches handled, and yet you continue collecting and using personal data. Could it be a point of ignorance, or you not being fully aware? So please, when you're completing the reports, keep it in mind that we'll be reviewing and asking these questions. Right now, we, at least for this year, assisting you to ensure that you properly understand. But as you're aware, the law gives us the powers to penalize anyone that does not comply with our notices. This can be imprisonment and a financial penalty. That is the very last resort, but if you force us by not being compliant, we shall definitely get there, because what we're most interested in is making sure that you use this information, the personal data, responsibly, but also you see the value that it has and how you can tap into it, but also, most importantly, safeguarding the privacy of the people from whom you've collected the personal data, not just your customers, but also your employees. Over to you, Anita.
Okay, thank you very much, Becca. That was very educative. We are going to quickly go to the questions. One, is there a possibility of extension of the deadline for organizations which registered in the month of September? Becca?
Okay, that is a good question. For the organizations that registered in the month of September, we'll be sending out communication to you, whether you're exempted or not, but not for now. Thank you.
All right. The next question, what happens if the certificate has no expiry date? And why should we annually renew when the company's business has not changed?
The certificate has an expiry date, even if it's not expressly provided, because it states that this certificate will be valid for 1 year. So if it says 1 year, that means at that date to that date on which the certificate was issued is the expiry date. Why it's annual? It helps us understand what your processing operations are and areas where we can assist you, because compliance is not a destination. You know, it's a journey. So you cannot say that, you know, you've registered, you're fully compliant. No, a lot happens, such as, you know, the compliance tools that we've given you. So we use it as a mechanism to embed compliance in your operations. That's why we have to do it annually.
Okay, thank you. The next question, the templates, this one is talking about the self-assessment templates, require certain evidences to be attached. Are we supposed to attach the official company documents, or we advise on the policy that applies to the area?
Now, the self-assessment, it is for your use. And the templates, you shouldn't share them with us unless we've asked you during an audit. So those tools are supposed to be used by you, and then you advise your management. But for the annual privacy report, compliance report, you need not attach the policies or the evidence of what you've given.
Okay, thank you. Another question, does access requests count as complaints?
Yes, you can. They do count.
Okay, the next question is, for clarity, did you say the CEO should sign the compliance report, not the DPO?
Yes, the DPO only, well, if you've been unable to get the CEO, but we advise the first person option should be given to the CEO, because that way they can be able to own it as the top representative of the organization.
Okay, thank you. Another question, do we submit the compliance rules along with the compliance report to the office? I think this is the same question with what you answered just a few minutes ago. Yeah, questions are just about that. Someone is asking, will you be able to share these documents after the training?
Well, the documents were shared with the registered DPO. So if the person asking is not the DPO, please ask your DPO, because this was shared with them. But if you're the DPO and you didn't get it, you can DM us your email address.
Okay, thank you, Becca. The next question is, when is the invoice for renewal generated and forwarded to the entity, before or after submission?
We no longer issue invoices. Payment is done online through URA. So maybe it's the same way as you do an assessment for payment of a government service. So this, you can go to our YouTube channel. It has under the registration folder, it has a video on how you can conduct an assessment using the URA portal, and you pay through any channel, mobile money, banks, or whichever. So invoices are no longer issued.
All right, thank you. The next question is, for newly registered organizations, are they required to report transactions or breaches that occurred before registration?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last bit.
Is asking, for the newly registered organizations, are they required to report breaches that occurred before registration?
That's a good question. Whatever you're providing, whichever information you're providing in the compliance report should be within the reporting period of, when you registered up to the very point of, that is 28th of September.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Becca. We have another question. Someone says, we also registered in May. We have just really started this and we've not done much work on this. And it was not in our work plan. We don't have financial and human resources for this. Do we really have to do this report?
Okay, those that will be exempted from submitting the report, we are going to send out an email, but at least it should be anyone that is registered before 30th of June, you're required definitely to submit that report. But I'm going to send out a very clear communication to guide you. Then the reporting period within which the information should be indicated.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question. Shall we move all these templates online within the portal? Yes, someone
Yes,
is asking. Yes.
Sorry?
Yes, Becca.
Yes, this will be automated, but that will be, let's look at possibly early next year. That's why for now we provided the Word document, but in the future, yes, it will be.
Okay, thank you, Becca. Someone is asking, where can we access the tools you've shared with us today? These tools were shared. I think Becca had answered this. But in case you are DP and you are unable to receive them, please reach out to us after this call. Another question is, does this mean we are only required to submit the compliance report while we keep the self-assessment tools internally to monitor our growth? Yes, I think this was answered. Our next question is, what are some of the requirements needed to recertify? Becca?
They are the same requirements, so you complete Form 3 within the account. The usual information, one, the location details of the data protection officer, which information you collect, generally what is provided for. Then Form 3, but you pay the 100,000 afresh for the renewal period. And for the renewal, this is now done online. So the credentials will be sent to the data protection officer's email address, and they log in. Please do not submit hard copies. We no longer receive such.
Okay, thank you, Becca. Someone is asking, do we have to attach the policies?
This one I had already answered. Please do not submit any policies or any other documentation with your reports. Just give us the information that we require. It's only when we are auditing you or investigating that we shall rely on, one, your registration information and your compliance information, and then we ask for such evidence. So be mindful that if you give us false information and we compare with whatever you've been submitting, it carries penalties. But to answer your question, do not attach.
Okay, thank you, Becca. The next question is, what are the guidelines around the audit your office will do? How often does a company get a heads up?
Now, what guides us, we come up with an annual audit plan at the beginning of every government financial year. That means in July. We communicate to those that will be auditing. We give them sufficient notice to let them know we'll be auditing you. We have an opening meeting. We agree on a number of things. So for audits, we do not surprise you. With investigations, it's slightly different.
All right, thank you. The next one is asking, when do we renew registration? When do we renew the registration, and having paid and registered, how do I get a certificate?
Thank you. Those are two questions in one. You can only renew if you earlier were registered, and registration means you are given a certificate, not you just submitting documents and you sit back. So if you have that certificate, you renew, you're given a date when your registration was effected. Then the renewal is 3 months at the expiry of that registration. And registration, remember, lasts a year.
Okay, thank you very much, Becca. Someone is asking about the deadline. Barbara, the deadline for submitting the report is 28 September. The next question is, what types of organizations fall within this act?
The organizations that are under the purview of this act, every public, private, or even individual that's collecting and processing, storing, using personal data that identifies an individual are the ones that are regulated.
Okay, thank you, Becca. Another question is, kindly elaborate on how loss of a laptop amounts to breach of data.
So let's say the laptop that I have has personal information. I've been using it as a lawyer to draft contracts for employment contracts, maybe disciplinary decisions, insurance policies, any. And this information is kept, locally on the laptop. So if it is stolen from me, and that means there is a high likelihood that the other person who has stolen it will access such information, that can amount to a breach. Because a breach, this relates to the confidentiality of that information. It will be accessed, it will be abused in the sense of being accessed by a person that is not authorized to access such information. When you report a breach, the whole importance is you let us know this has happened. There is a risk to the personal data. We give you regulatory guidance on how that risk can be managed. But if we see that it's a high impact risk, we also guide you on that, notify the individuals what they need to do to protect themselves to avoid probably being defrauded, their privacy further being abused. That's the whole importance of reporting or notifying a breach.
Okay, thank you very much, Becca. I will move on to the next question. Someone is asking, what if we have complaints and data breaches that we've never reported to the PDPO? Can we include them in the report?
Yes, you do so. Actually, what we should, when a person asks that question, what we should do, everyone, as long as you've been registered before 28th of September, submit that report. Like I pointed out, this is to help us understand where you are and how we can assist you. So even if you're registered on 25th, because registration involves review, the expectation is that you already have this information. So those, even if you haven't reported, indicate them. We'll see. But of course, now going forward that you should have immediately notified them to the office.
Okay, thank you very much, Becca. Another question is, if we are using the Excel templates, does it work on MacBook? I'm asking because some tools like this, for example, the one for URA only works with Windows machines, which makes it hard for others with MacBook.
Unfortunately, I don't use a MacBook, so I don't know how to answer that. Please ask someone who uses other laptops or machines, and you're able to download it and see how you can be helped.
Thank you, Becca. The next question is, in the event that the organization has not yet established a dedicated DPO, is the information in the report still valid?
The information in the report, I told you with the DPO, there are two terminologies which I use: appointment, which means the person exclusively does that, or designation. So if the organization registered, that means they gave us a designated person in the application. That is the same person that should be indicated in the report.
Okay. Thank you, Becca. Someone is asking, if an organization is not yet registered, can it send a report? Back to you, Becca.
No, the reports are for those that are registered.
Okay, thank you very much. Someone says, how about we send compliance reports and risk assessments instead of annual registration? Registration should be for new companies instead of those that registered.
Well, that is not possible because the law requires otherwise, and we are mandated to follow the law.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we need to attach evidence to the annual compliance report?
This already answered, and the response is still no.
Yes, and also members asking about the deadline for submitting the report. Please note that this is 28th of this month. And someone else is saying also if the date that was scheduled for the audit is past September 28th, should we indicate that in the end of year report as a projected date for the external audit?
The report is only about what has been done within the reporting period. That can only be provided as a note below the table, but not within the table.
Okay, thank you. Another question. Do you have a list of origin of data breach?
A list of origin of data breach. This question is not clear. Maybe if a person can provide more context, I think we can go to the next, but probably we'll pick up from their clarification later on.
All right, Sharon, you can get back to us on that. For guidance, what happens for all these signatures for companies which are multinational? For example, a DPO is based outside the country because it's a global company, and so is the CEO.
Well, for the signatures, we have the Electronic Transactions Act operation in Uganda, which allows use of electronic signatures. We encourage you to use that.
Okay, thank you very much, Becca.
The Electronic Transactions Act and Electronic Signatures Act. So, and the law does not recognize a specific type of signatures. So it says as long as you use one that you believe is reliable to the transaction that you're undertaking, you can go ahead and use that. So please implement any.
Thank you, Becca. The next question is, the demonstration video registration says we can pay for more than a year. Will a certificate be valid according to the payment?
Yes, there have been instances where the video says pay for 1 year, but in case there was a mistake, we'll revise our video because the 100,000 is for 1 year. But we've had instances where entities paid 200,000. There was even one that paid 500,000. Now at renewal, we'll use that extra amount of money as long as it covers the minimum requirement for that period.
All right, thank you very much. Members, for those of you saying you didn't receive the compliance tool, please send us an email on info@pdpo.go.ug. I'm going to be typing it in the chat later. Send us to an email and then we'll be able to get back to you with those tools. Someone says, I did not understand information security assessment tool. Back to you, Becca.
Okay, but the information security assessment tool, it just basically looks at the information assets. Now, how information security is different from data protection is that it looks at how the information assets beyond personal data are, one, categorized within the organization and controls are put in place. So that tool will guide and show you, okay, one, we have a person in charge of information security. What information assets do we have? That which is kept on systems, in cabinets, maybe in a store. Then secondly, what controls are there? What to avoid, the risk being magnified. So implementing those controls. And then these controls, how should they be tested to ensure the confidentiality of that information, its integrity and availability. Then in case there is a breach, how should the incident be handled? So basically that's what it talks about. And then of course, all that should be contained in an information security policy.
All right, thank you very much. I'll quickly move on to the next question. We have a few minutes to go and the questions are many. The next question is, where we give our own audit assessment tool, do we have to use your template as well?
Now, yes, because this tool, we are giving you what our expectation is in regard to data protection and privacy compliance requirements in Uganda. Maybe what you can do is that you compare. If it is similar to what is already available in your audit tool, then there is no need to replicate it. But in case there are areas where some is missing, then you can embed. So we are not asking you to introduce new compliance audits and other related aspects. Is that if you can use this and embed it in your already existing, well and good. But in case they are vastly different, please have this as a separate one.
Okay, thank you very much, Becca. Someone says there are situations where staff who have attended the data protection training decide to leave the organization. What arrangements can be done in such a situation?
Of course, where staff leave, the trainings that we ask for in the report is what was conducted within the training, rather the reporting period that indicated. But since it's an ambiguous question, if you're talking about the DPO being the one that leaves, the replacement should definitely be equipped. As it is, people join and leave organizations at will, so there should be a continuity plan in that regard.
Okay, thank you very much. Someone is asking, in case awareness training for staff hasn't been done yet, is it supposed to be done before the report? The report is written?
Well, if you're able to do so, please go ahead. But just don't do it for the sake of ticking the box and providing the information. Follow what the template says on how to conduct trainings and keeping records of them, and also ensuring evaluation is done. But yes, you can do it before the end of the reporting period.
Thank you, Becca. Someone is asking, is the renewal of registration done online?
Yes, it is. Maybe Anita, after the question, you'll just give me a minute to show them how it will be done.
All right. Someone is asking, after submission of the SCR and your compliance report, does the organization get official notice for approval?
Yes, we always do that. These reports are sent online at compliance@pdpo.go.ug. At least we send acknowledgement, but then after review, we'll also be getting back to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Becca. There's another question here. We currently have a consolidated risk register. Is it okay for us to maintain this instead of having a separate risk register for the data protection policy?
Please do not duplicate. You can go ahead with that, but compare with what risk may occur to personal data, and where your register doesn't capture them, include them. But it's advisable to have one. Okay,
thank you very much, Becca. Someone is asking whether the trainings are posted on our YouTube channel. Yes, we do live stream all our webinars. We'll be sharing with you the link in an email. Are you going to share the recording? Yes, we are going to be able to share this recording, but it is also available on YouTube. Someone says, are we supposed to report all complaints in the month in the organization if they are not related to data? Back to you, Becca.
No, the only complaints you're interested in are those to do with handling of personal data. And maybe the person came in late, but how you should consider the categorization. You will rewatch this video, that particular section on how to go about it and how to categorize them.
Thank you
But
very much.
for emphasis, this is for only personal data related complaints.
Okay, thank you, Becca. The next question is there a standard template for conducting a data protection impact assessment, and is it mandatory to do it?
We do not have a template for now, but if your scenario is one of those covered under the law, yes, it is mandatory.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question is, we submitted a hard copy of our annual compliance report in July, but we've never made payment. I do not think we are paying for the annual compliance report. Maybe Becca, you need to advise on this.
Annual compliance, as you've said, submission of annual compliance reports does not carry payment. So definitely that is not one that requires. Sorry, that is not one where a person is expected to pay. Now, in case you submitted anything manually at our offices, there is acknowledgement of receipt. So whatever you submitted, please share with us to our emails. It can be shared with info@pdpo.go.ug, what was acknowledged. But if it wasn't acknowledged, receipt, then please reach out to us and we have a conversation to guide you on whatever your concern is.
All right, thank you very much. The next question is it okay to keep the subject information for longer than stipulated periods due to reasons that can be explained to the DPO? For example, in circumstances where a bank has had non-performing loans for over 10 years and still needs to keep client information to enable collection. Back to you, Becca.
Retention of information, the law does not specify periods, and this is what it says. You can keep personal data, one, for as long as you're required by law. I'll give an example. Insurance and banking, they are required to keep information for 10 years. Then after, there is something they call archival. Archival retention is mainly about information that you're actively using. But let me say you can archive information which the law also recognizes. One, if you believe that this information can be used, maybe to defend yourself in a lawsuit, then it should be kept in such for a longer period of time. Or the other, it could be kept within, let's say someone entered into a contract, the example that you gave, but then you expect that maybe from the relationship that you have, it could be extended. So it could be kept for that longer period of time. So still, according to your records and retention policy, look at your scenarios. Always ask, why are you collecting this information? That should inform why you should keep it for that period of time.
Okay, thank you very much. For those asking, there are questions about how the report should be sent, whether it's through the portal or email. It should be sent through email. We are going to type the email in the chat. So the next question, Becca, is the URA portal only provides a drop down of register and not renewal in the categories of payment. Should we use the same?
Good question. Yes, please use that.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question is, does the data protection officer have to be a resident of Uganda?
They don't have to, but if you're to use anyone outside Uganda, please have these considerations and record them. Can the people who they are going to advise, such as the employees, easily access that person? One, time zones, then secondly, an email address which the person responds to, phone number dedicated to that person. If there will be those challenges, it's not advisable. And then also remember the DPO not only advises employees on compliance, but also the data subjects, the individuals from whom you collect the information. if they will have a challenge on reaching the DPO, please do not have such a person appointed as one. But in case that can be done with ease, then that person can be the DPO. And they should definitely be very familiar with our laws.
Okay, thank you, Becca, for that clarification. The next question is, how do you determine whether a company is a data processor or data controller?
Okay, please visit our website, pdpo.go.ug. Under the Information Center, we have responses to such questions, and quick response, data controller is the person who determines the means and purposes for collecting the information. So they could either do it alone or jointly. So simply put, this is the person who determines which information to collect. So I'm an employer, I say I need a person with these qualifications, with a particular degree. There I'm determining which information to collect. And why? Because I would want them to be able to perform a particular job. The other could be you're providing a service, but you need to know where people are located so that you can deliver that. That makes you a controller. The process on the other end, they do not determine which information to collect and process, but rather they are handed that information by the controller to use the information in a way they're expected to use it. An example still, I'm a company, I have employees, I've determined, okay, Becca is at this level, should be paid this much, Anita. So then I tell the banks that pay Becca this much, this frequently. Now the bank cannot determine how much salary I should be paid. That makes the bank a data processor.
Okay, thank you, Becca. The next question is, how can I access forms, for example, the data breach form?
Now for the data breach, you still go to our website, pdpo.go.ug, and then under Resource Information Center, you get the forms. But now the reporting of a data breach has been automated. You just have to log into the account. You tap on the website, report a breach, then you have to log in the account, and then it will be done from there. Maybe just to show you, Anita, very briefly.
Okay.
So you come here to the website. So report a breach. So this is an account of a DPO. So you have logged in, then you come here, and now you are able to report the breach online. So you no longer need a physical form, just log in the account and do the needful.
Okay, thank you, Becca. The next question is still on the loss of a laptop that was earlier asked. Someone says, what if I already have a mobile device management tool? Yes, the laptop was stolen, but I already have systems in place to immediately wipe remotely.
Well, the law says report a breach. Now those, what you've been able to do, wiping and whichever within the form, that will be indicated. But for starters, you're required to report.
Okay, thank you very much. We registered in June, but we are just starting up and we don't have a DPO. Do we still need to hand in the report? I think this was answered. Someone says they use a MacBook and it works perfectly. There was a question about a MacBook. I hope you guys can get in touch and help each other. Someone says, what renders appointment or designation of a DPO in a company?
That one we already answered it.
The next question is, someone says, hello, Becca, please clarify on whether we should send compliance checklists as well attached to the report.
I think we're having people who are joining in late. That one we said no, it's not required.
Okay, thank you very much, Becca. Another question is, after how long do we get feedback on whether our reports meet the requirements upon submission?
The timelines, at least we'll be getting back to you within a reasonable time. I cannot commit to timelines for now.
Okay, thank you, Becca. Another question is, if an organization is a subsidiary, do group policies on data protection and data privacy apply?
They can apply if they cover the Ugandan law.
Okay,
and it's also advisable as the DPO, whereby at least you own them within the Ugandan subsidiary.
Okay, thank you, Becca. Another question is it a must that the data protection policy has to be a separate policy, or can it just be incorporated with other company policies? For instance, can I combine it with the AML policy?
It should be a separate policy.
Thank you, Becca. Okay. The next question is, can one serve as a data protection officer for more than one organization?
Yes, they can, only if they are able to show that, you know, the usual accessibility, you can properly advise, and you're very familiar with the operations of the different companies. Wouldn't want to have DPOs who have no idea even what the companies do around data collection and processing. But if you can be able to demonstrate that, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Becca. Another question is, in the demonstration video, renewal of certificates, the retention period field seems fixed to years, meaning only figures are required. Retention periods for data collected may differ according to various legislation. How does one go about this? Does this mean that we add retention periods for various data collected and post the total in the field?
Now, for registration purposes, you can give an estimate or an average of those years.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question is, and I want to believe that this is going to be the last question. After a data breach has been reported and filed, what is expected to happen next?
We'll give you regulatory guidance in respect to how to manage the risk, and most importantly, also the privacy of the individuals, whether to reach out to them and guiding them on how they should, what they should do in to manage how the risk could affect them, either change passwords or maybe update something, but it's around managing risk really.
Okay, thank you, Becca. One more question has come in, which I think we shouldn't leave behind. And someone asks, have you published a list of countries with or without sound data protection laws or framework?
Not yet.
All right, thank you very much, Becca. Members, please keep the questions coming in. You can also keep the conversation flowing on our social media platforms. We are going to be able to share this presentation after the meeting, and also the link for you to go back and study more. We posted a link in the chat, an evaluation link. Please go there and evaluate this training. Let us know how it is, so that we are able to know what to do, so that we make it better for you next time. Becca, do you have something else to say or to talk about before we close the webinar?
Okay, we've already gone past the required time because this should have ended at 11, but in 2 minutes we are ending. I'm just going to show you how the renewal is now done. So we'll be sending out our credentials to the registered DPOs that will be able to log into the account. This is what the account looks like. So you'll see a dashboard Then under company registration, there is renewal. It will have information that you earlier provided at the registration. So you complete the information through URA, upload the proof of payment. Then we review. Certificate will be sent back to you, still within your account. So that's how the renewal will be done. Thank you. Over to you, Anita.
Okay, thank you very much, Becca. Thank you very much, those of you who have attended. We look forward to receiving your reports very soon. Have a wonderful day.
Okay, thank you.